Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn with another edition of Growth Driven. I am super pumped about this interview because I am with fellow coffee and chocolate lover, David Brier. And today we're going to talk about transforming your brand. Hey, everyone. I am here with David Brier, and he's going to be talking about transforming your brand. And so thank you, David, for coming. But I got to tell everybody who you are if they don't already know. And if they don't know who you are, they're living under a rock. But Ed has been featured on Fast Company, ADWEEK, Forbes, the New York Times, Communications Art, Inc. magazine, and many others. He's interviewed Grant Cardone. He's worked on massive projects with branding. Over the years, I've referred him a couple people because I felt they needed that level of expertise. So, David, thank you so much for being on Growth Driven.
Absolutely, man. I'm very glad to be here, and I actually like the color coordination between my shirt, this band here, your shirt. It's all working, man. I'm digging this. I'm digging it.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about. Marketing is about coordinating the brand, right?
It's connecting those dots, man.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm meeting your first test. So tell me, you have been in branding for so long, and I know when people ask me, and you know this better than I do, there's a lot of confusion about what branding is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you just give me from your experience, your viewpoint, what is branding and what is the layers on it that make it so important for business?
Well, basically, if you're talking to a big company, they already are engaged in some aspect of branding, whether they know it or not. I mean, whether they're well versed in it or not, they're definitely like, oh, we're doing branding, especially as you get into like the bigger, national, international, global corporations. Then as you start to descend down, branding is something that people have heard. Branding is something that people are kind of like, nice to do. Maybe when I fully grow up and grow a full head of hair or whatever, it's a very funny thing. It's like a little bit of an over there thing.
Yeah.
They don't quite get it. And so after doing this, this year, so next year will be 41 years that I've been doing this. This year is my 40th year of doing this.
Well done.
So, thank you. And so what happened was after looking at the fact that when I started contemplating putting it down in paper to write brand intervention, I looked at there are the same questions that I get every time with every client. Doesn't matter whether they're a startup, doesn't matter whether they're new, doesn't matter whether they have 10 years of experience in business, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, running a company that has $500,000 in sales or running a company that has 50 million in sales. Though the amount of zeros and the amount of commas did not equate to they understand branding. Didn't happen. And so
you run into these quintessential, these eternal questions of what branding is, regardless of the company.
Yeah.
I think that's a great takeaway because, look, if you guys are listening to David right now, and let me just share his website with you, go to risingabovethenoise.com where you can find his content, his blogs, his videos, his new book, which he'll be talking about more. So go to risingabovethenoise.com. But the takeaway here is, really, isn't that true of every business? They get the same questions over and over.
Same questions, same stuff. They get a lot of the time. What I find is that they get caught either in the minutia, or they get caught in what I call the shiny object syndrome, such as, ooh, there's a new social platform, we got to be on there.
Right.
And or there's just like what I call the tactic du jour. It's like, ooh. So-and-so's just written a book on how you can turn email into blah, 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 or you can turn social posts into, or you can go viral. And everyone wants that sort of instant quick hit, that one shot of that silver bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that I go over. I go, look, if you're looking for a silver bullet, the conversation ends here. Because that's looking for something else to do the work for you, and somehow you're going to magically become the recipient of that awesome charm of splendor.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all. So when you begin to educate brands about branding and how to really do it right, tell me some of those questions or challenges you have to answer or help them overcome.
Well, one of the things is I'll always start the conversation off. It's like, tell me about your business, blah, blah, blah. Good. And they'll tell me whatever and it does not matter. The industry does not matter. The geography does not matter, whether they're local, regional, national, international, or global, does not matter. If you have a pulse and you have a dream, it applies to you. That's the fact. So I literally go and say, all right, tell me about your business, blah, 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 blah. I don't care whether it's B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. I've branded cities. It's crazy. With the crap that I branded, crazy. So the thing is they tell me, I then say, good, now why should I as a consumer, why should I pick you? Why should I choose your brand over another brand? That's the little threshold that we start to come around the corner. And they go, oh, well. And they very proudly, like a proud mama or a papa, tell me how gorgeous their baby is, right? And it's the most beautiful baby in the world. Ignore its third eye and its four ears. Yep. It's stunning, right? And they tell me all this stuff. And the problem with their stuff is that 99% of what they're saying is, it goes like this. They'll say how great they are, how much research was done in it, the knowledge, the customer care, the service, the technical prowess, how much simpler, how much smarter, how much smaller, how much bigger, how much better, how much tastier, how much more localer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so
it's all cliches.
There's your point. And I say, so let me ask you something. So now, why do I know that if I went to any of your competitors, they would tell me pretty much the same thing that you just told me? Yeah. That's at which the point the light starts to ding. They go, So I haven't challenged them. All I've done is said, I got them to look. To widen instead of this little myopic look at their world, I've gotten them to like widen their scope. So they now look. They look and they go, They start to, something's burning here.
It's our brand.
Yeah.
Our brand is on the stove burning.
Yeah. It's lit. You might have wanted to put some water in that an hour and a half ago. Right.
Totally. Okay, so now they start to sniff the smoke.
Yeah.
They're starting to get that purple haze kind of realization that
them and Jimi Hendrix, they're watching that guitar go up in smoke, man, right there.
They're just watching the flames. So kind of take me through the process a little bit of how you get them to go, oh, that's what branding is.
Well, I say, at that point they start to look, and I say, and when the little light in their eyes go off, and they start to go, all is not well. I look at them and I say, and that's the problem.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to say a hell of a lot more. I would go boom, 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 and that's the problem. And then I add to that. I say, and it's not that what you're saying is untrue. It doesn't matter that what you're saying might in fact be true, that you have the best, the tastiest, the most savory, the most streamlined, the most advanced, the most state-of-the-art, the most revolutionary, blah, 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 blah. Even with all that being true, I then ask this, Why are you using the language of the old to introduce the new?
Wow, I love that. That right there is, oh, wow. I'll have to credit you for that one. I am using that. I love that. Why are you using the language of the old to introduce the new? And I think you just nailed the crux of the problem in branding.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so now introducing the new. So they have that epiphany. You're right. Or they see that it's smoking. Take me through what you've done for some brands. Some examples of it was burning. They were using the language of the old, and then how you brought in the new and the results that happened as a result.
Yeah. So there's a few that come to mind. So one is, and literally they just informed me last week that they're now 300%, 3x the sales from 18 months ago.
It's awesome.
When we did the rebrand. They were called High Meadow Farms. They offer premium dog food, and this is uncooked. So they make it. It's all made fresh. It's frozen. It's premium. It actually restores health to dogs. That's a whole bunch of benefits, which are fine. Benefits are great, of course. Yep. Features are great, of course. Yep. But High Meadow Farms, and this, by the way, any of these that I'm about to cite, you can find on risingabovethenoise.com. You can find on the website. There's tons of examples of befores and afters. So what happens is and
I'm showing the website here for a few more seconds. So if you guys are on, go to Rising Above the Noise to find these examples.
Exactly. So what happens is they're High Meadow Farms. And I look at this and I say, so tell me about your business, blah, blah, blah. What business? And there's another question I ask. So tell me the business you're in. Mm-hmm. Because I want to get their conclusion of what business they're in. Right. I'm not necessarily accepting it, but I want to hear their conclusion, what business they think they're in. And so I listen, and dog food, and dog food, dog food. And I'm listening, I'm saying, tell me a little bit about your customer. Oh, they tend to be, doing better in life. They have a nicer quality of life, and the income is good, and this, that, the other, and they enjoy quality of life. I said, this sounds like kind of like a wine and cheese, like people who would love the quality of life. They enjoy the finer things. Like she goes, absolutely, no question. I said, okay. So I looked at that. I said, you're actually, you don't know what business you're in. I said, that's not. I said, you think you're in the dog food business. You're actually in the lifestyle business. You happen to serve people who love a good quality of life, who happen to own four-legged pets that they are passionately in love with. Now, if you frame it that way, it changes your context quite a bit.
Absolutely. I think this is it, for anybody watching or listening when we turn this into a podcast. David, I believe, just brought up a really good point. Is often we look at our business in the wrong frame, and someone like David gets us to look at and reframe our business, and all of a sudden the shift of viewpoint changes how we view everything, as well as from that point how we're going to move on our branding.
Complete. And so I ended up renaming the brand, and so it went from High Meadow Farms to Napa Fresh Food for Dogs.
Wow.
So Napa Fresh, doesn't that not instantly say, Napa Fresh, how much it sounds, I can envision just the wonderful buckets of fresh produce and fresh meat and fresh this, all just coming over the hills as I'm drinking my wine and enjoying my cheese or whatever like that.
Putting on a cracker.
I know, exactly. And then there's a little sort of semi-slogan that kind of goes like Earth's most civilized food for dogs.
Oh, I love that.
And anyway, now they have the packaging all reflected it. The packaging is stunning. The look and the feel is utterly distinctive. They have carrying tote bags that people get. They have buttons that people are now collecting because of the cool design and everything. So what has it become now? It's actually risen to what it was. It was a lifestyle brand that didn't even know it was a lifestyle brand before. So they were treating it like a different thing and the wrong thing, right? Because they had omitted one vital component to their entire brand, their customer's lifestyle.
And you basically, what you did is you took that customer's lifestyle, you reverse engineered it, and then had a design and the swag and the look and the packaging that represented it. So when I have that lifestyle, I look at it, I go, oh, that's my lifestyle.
Yeah. And I mean, I have their actual sales graph, because they keep their monthly, they share with me their monthly statistics, and they, entirely during the whole COVID craziness from March to August, when everyone's like, oh, when's it going to end? It's like everyone's kind of like still kind of recalibrating themselves, or how they, and they're just exploding. And so, anyway, so that's one example. Another example is a chocolatier that absolutely was. It was amazing what had happened with this chocolatier. It didn't involve a name change, but it involved a total change of this, and it was disruptive in this way. The thing that happened was, so they're called legacy chocolates, and they look the way they had a look that I found very. It looked cheap. It didn't look the right feel.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the top chocolatiers in America, unbeknownst to them. Somehow, by some fluke, they managed to really just nail it, and they were in like the top 3 or 4. I mean, I could put them head to head with practically any other chocolatier, and they would almost always come out on top. Their stuff was amazing. But there were a number of factors that contributed to them looking the way they looked. And I kept on saying, the owner kept on coming to me and saying, David, I mean, this has gone on for about 10 months. Like every few weeks, he'd stop in my office and say, David, I really, it's like sales have kind of like plateaued. Can we, what can be done? Maybe I just need to lower my price. I'm like, dude, why would you lower your price? Why are you going to cut into your margin for a little spike increase? Where's the logic of that? You're offering a premium product. And trust me, foodies don't give a damn about freaking 20-cent difference, 50-cent difference, 75-cent difference. They don't care, because they're the ones that are going to drive 45 miles out of their way to go to your shop. So look at your audience. Again, look at your audience. So what I did is I looked at all the competitors. And now, for those that don't know me, I'm a native New Yorker, born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, then Long Island, and then started my career in Manhattan. And when I started, I worked on brands like Estee Lauder, Revlon. I worked on the various global cosmetic brands and other brands. Mm-hmm. And so I saw there was this particular unspoken mantra that I think the cosmetic world subscribes to, and that is, we will convey an aura of everything, but communicate nothing. It's like, in other words, you look at it, ooh, you touch it, ooh, the texture, the feel, the paper, and you smell it, ooh. So it's like sensory overload, but is it communicating anything? No, it's literally an immersion into, we will now tickle and titillate your senses, right?
Right.
And so when I started working on legacy, I started looking at what's the competition doing, and I saw they were all doing what I call the cosmetic, we will convey an aura of everything but say nothing. Like, they used nice papers and textures and cool little things, nuances, and ooh. It was like visual flourish and all kinds of stuff, but no substance. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, that was one observation. Another observation, people were going crazy over the Food Channel. Another observation, foodies love little factoids. They love little saying, oh, did you realize that the salmon is actually from Alaska? It's like,
yeah. They love being an expert on the nuances and details of the food.
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll go, oh, I could tell that the oil is rancid for this deep fried calamari. It's so I was like, So I'm looking at the culture of that public, and I'm looking at what everyone's doing, and so we decided to do a complete 180. So in other words, what was observed? Here's the takeaway here. The cliche at that time was, if you are a gourmet chocolatier, look beautiful, feel beautiful, relay nothing. That was the cliche. So I'm like, well, if that's the cliche, well, we're not going to go cliche. Cliches are the enemy of branding, right? So I'm like, all right. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go. We now designed a box that was sturdy, awesome, because I knew women were a primary audience, like a very key driver.
Yeah.
If you create an amazing box, women will not throw it away. They will find a purpose for it.
Wow.
Right?
Now that's a great observation. I love that.
Right.
Yeah. Like you create it's like my mom. If there was a great gift box at Christmas,
Yeah.
she was saving it for the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found out years later, when I would actually be speaking to companies that were like, hey, we'd like to speak with you, and we'd be interviewing each other to see if we were going to work together, and they found out that I was the guy behind Legacy Chocolates. They're like, oh, you're the guy. and I'm like, what? They're like, my wife has 5 of these boxes in the attic she refuses to throw away. And so, but the thing that happened was we literally covered the entire box very tastefully, very beautifully, with the coolest little things you didn't know about chocolate, bits of trivia, bits of this and bits of that. And even with language that was like, share responsibly, may cause chocolate envy, And so what we found was we did a soft launch by just having it on the back counter in their shop.
Oh.
There were no new flavors, no changes in price, no changes in hours, no changes in signage, no new sexy people with low cut shirts, no nothing. Right? Zero. I mean, the only thing that was different was these boxes were sitting on the back counter. That was it. What happened? I went back the month later. So we started in June, and spring and summer down season for chocolate sales globally. So I go the end of the month, say, how'd it go? The owner goes, sales of truffles, 300%. We tripled the amount of sales.
You tripled the truffle.
Tripled, 3x. Same traffic going through the shop, who were going through for their coffees and their espressos and their teas and their scones and their muffins and their chocolate bars and their truffles and blah, 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 blah. 3x. So then I go at the end of July. I say, how did this month go? He goes, July was over June. I'm like, oh my God. And I go to August. And I go, how'd it go? He goes, David, August exceeded July sales. And he goes, not only that. I said, what? He goes, August sales exceeded February. Valentine's Day, the month. There's two months when chocolatiers cash in, February and December. Okay, that's when they make their money. And so August, worst sales month of the year for chocolate, eclipses February. The only change was this box, this packaging, how we presented it to the world.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So they did the soft launch, and then obviously you did a bigger type launch once the.
Yep. There was a cocoa mix that they had that was amazing. They could never move it because they were so handmade. It would just be in a plastic bag with a little twist tie at the top.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's really handcrafted feel, right?
Right.
Couldn't move it for beans. Now all of a sudden we create this beautiful, narrow, tall box, and people, it's like they can't keep it on the shelves. And there was even another, and they even made the most intoxicatingly obscene chocolate sauce. The first ingredient was locally made butter. The stuff was so slippery in the thing because of the butter content, but it was just like, oh my God. It was just hook me up on an IV, clog my arteries directly. I'm in, right? It was insane. But the thing was just how we packaged that and presented that. Just that alone, I loved it. That was called Potion Number 9.
Oh, I like that.
And the thing is because what I found is that people filled in the blank. People were like, people filled in the blank, like, love potion number 9. All of a sudden, like potion number 9, and we explain what it was. And so it's just, so language is your tool. Visuals are your tool, design your tool, colors, all of these are your tools to achieve what? Differentiation. And the opposite of differentiation is a cliche. You never want to be a cliche. You always want to have differentiation.
Great point. Anybody watching this or listening, I think these are great takeaways. You know, I never really looked at that the opposite of differentiation is a cliche. It's almost like the cliche becomes the default marketing strategy. And what I've observed is people tend to market to others the way they've been marketed to. Like they subconsciously do to others what has been enforced upon them as a mental training pattern.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not trained in marketing and you can't recognize the hypnotic effect of what's happening to you, you think that this is the way to do it.
Yeah. Especially if you see, like what you just said, especially if, quote unquote, everyone does it that way.
Yes.
So it's sort of like this unspoken, that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah, very much so. What you say about changing the language and changing the visuals? I know that you're big into research. You've touched upon that in the 2 examples and great examples. Thanks.
Yeah.
What are some tools that you use to kind of what's the best word is you kind of evoke out of people or the culture the right language? How do you pull that out?
A lot of it, I'm a big fan of finding what's hiding in plain sight. I'm an enormous fan of that. I think people's ability to observe what's right there is a lost art and a lost skill for so many.
I agree.
And they look for little special things. They think, they get overly complex with it. It's like, excuse me. It's like you just had 5 customers say, I want blah, blah, blah. Did you listen? Did you hear? You know, I mean, it's so to me, so much of it is hiding in plain sight. But what oftentimes happens with business owners, CEOs, new startups, brands, they're like in the ocean. They can't tell which droplets in that ocean are important and which are relevant and which are useless. There's a lot of information. One of the things I will always tell clients, not all information has equal importance.
Very, very observant. Love that. So I had a question to you. What is the mindset or status that when people come to you, at what point in their life do they decide, I need to contact a guy like David Brier? What's happening?
Usually what's happening is that a few things. One is that things have plateaued, right? So the traction they're getting has either plateaued or it's lacking. So those are 2 things. Another thing that happens, especially for companies that have been in business for a while, and at the rate that business goes today, a while could be 2 years, a while could be 5 years, a while could be 10 years, could be 20 years, 30 years. So it's all relative to that industry and the rate of change in that industry. So 2 years in one industry might be 15 years in another industry because, look at the freaking, what changed in the vacuum industry until Dyson came around? Nothing, except for just the cosmetic look, right? The technology hadn't changed. Nothing had happened. So they all have different rates of change. But with that being said, if you as a business find yourself being pigeonholed, this is particularly true for businesses that have been in their industry for a long time, whatever that is to their industry. Well, if you have been pigeonholed, oh yeah, they're the blah, blah, blah company. Yeah. They're known for X, Y, Z. many times that's a ball and chain, because what happens is that the company's continuing to be busy with the day-to-day work, but yet they're not managing how they're seen in the world. And I kid you not, this is not an exaggeration. I have had clients, and the company that I worked with that was the oldest was 115 years old.
Wow.
And what had happened was when they came to me, they had, I think, 5 divisions, and they never had a plan. They never had a plan for growth in terms of, okay, as we grow, this is our flagship brand, and then this is our flag, and then this appends to that. And so that as a result, there was no brand architecture and there was no brand ecosystem, right? So it's kind of like, so it just sort of things happen haphazard. So you literally had these misfits of brands that you couldn't tell that they were even in the same company. And at the same time, there was so much opportunity for cross-selling. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was so dysfunctional. It's like they didn't look the same. They didn't sound the same. There were no shared values. It was like, it's like, really? Do you have the same parents? I mean, did mom like maybe,
Yeah.
And so
the mailman, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, all right. And that was about the worst. But that was an example. What I found was this. Some of these 5 different divisions, they had reputations that were from 40, 50, or 70 years ago. That's what they were still known as, even though what that was at that time now might only represent 20% of their business. So 80% of their business was completely unrepresented and not even known clearly. So now the salespeople and all marketing had to try and consistently no, we're this. That's literally an example of how bad it can get. So if you are finding yourself being improperly pigeonholed, that will strangle the life out of your brand. And if you don't take ownership of it and take ownership of that dialogue, and one of the ways that happens, I'll tell you a very interesting little thing, and your listeners might, any that it applies to, will probably go, holy crap, this is I need this. So it's like this. The best brands are connected to values that are timeless. The worst brands are connected to things that are transient and temporary, such as, like, for example, like I'm very much into music. So I've got I've not refused to throw away my 700 CD collection in my office that I have back there. So I still have that, plus my whole new digital collection. Forget about my prior albums and all that. So anyway, we got all that. So I would always find I would love to discover new bands and ones I enjoyed Motown, and I enjoyed Michael Jackson, and I enjoyed Led Zeppelin, and I enjoyed this and that, the other, and Frank Zappa and all this kind of stuff. But I also loved just discovering the art. The discovering part was fun for me.
Yeah. So
there's this site called CD Baby, and that was at the time when CDs were at the beginning. So now one would have thought in the beginning, and I might have made the same mistake. Hey, CD Baby. Oh, how cool. We're riding the wave, baby. We're riding it, man. CD Baby. Well, when CDs start going out of fashion and now it becomes streaming, now it goes from digital distribution to now streaming. So CDs are now dinosaurs. They basically hinge their wagon to the whatever the hell that line is.
Falling star.
When you hitch your something to a star. Anyway, but the bottom line is they connected their brand to this thing that was at the time hot but temporary, right? So if you connect your brand, what's the most great example of connecting to values? One of the best examples we all know is Nike. Just do it. Doesn't say really cool synthetic rubber, right? It doesn't say, hey, like this year's cool technology of bouncing little things under your feet. No, it wasn't feature driven. It wasn't transient. It was timeless, because just do it is always going to be with us. It's like, get off your ass, Get off your ass and do it. Right.
Start working out now.
You got it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key things.
I love that. I think that's definitely something I've learned is like really it's like timeless values and really evoking what that is that people resonate with. If there was just, this is a random thought I had, you know, it's like you mentioned music, like you'll talk to musicians and, you know, like I'm a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Yeah,
like,
right? Amazing guitarist.
Amazing guitarist.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of guitarists over the time, and I go, what do you think about Stevie Ray Vaughan? And I've learned more about Stevie Ray Vaughan from other guitarists because, you know, guitarists study guitarists.
Sure.
My point is you study brands.
Yeah.
Like some guitarists wish they could play with a band. They always have the dream band, or man, if I could just play a lick with Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you could go to a brand right now, regardless of money, and you could say, I want to work with you because I think you've got this golden opportunity for rebranding or brand architecture, whatever the thing that you could add value. What is the brand you'd just out of just pure joy?
So one that I admire what they're doing, or one that I feel needs help raising their game, which
needs help, that you would be just super excited to jump in and you step out of it with success and go, I was the guy that took this brand and I took it to a new level.
I think it's an interesting question, and no one's ever asked me that before. It's a very, very interesting question, and I'm kind of surprised by my answer, but I'll tell you my answer.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have two answers.
Okay, good. I'll take two.
Okay, so one is, I think Zoom as a technology is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
I use it every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's as necessary to me every day as really having my computer, my Apple, my iPhone, and everything. So I think that they're really good technologically as a company, and I think that they consistently. I mean, I think they do updates about every 2 to 3 weeks. Yes. So they're very, very proactive. So I appreciate that, and I don't think their brand is particularly strong. I think they deliver. I think they've done a great job in terms of distribution. I think they've done a great job in sort of that. But I don't think that they've ever done a great job in terms of why can't they tell their story in the way to the whole space of virtual meetings, the way Apple did in terms of bringing humanity to technology, right? So that's answer number one.
Good observation. I think there's so much more room in how Apple is, think differently and,
Yeah. So I think they could humanize it in such a way that it would be like nobody could nobody could touch them. I think that that's one. And I think the other is my hometown of New York City. I think what's happening in New York City right now is disgusting. I think the leadership in New York City is disgusting. I think they're idiots. I can't stand that we now have the worst mayor in the history of mayors on planet Earth. He's a moron. That's a waste of air. And then I'm not talking from a political party standpoint. I'm just talking about he's an idiot. And I think it's having a horrendous impact on the culture and the decisions and the economic stability and instability of New York City. And I think New York City is so ripe to reclaim its legacy. I think its legacy has been forfeited. I think it's been compromised. I think it's a disgrace. And I think that, I have a book here. I think it's called Vertical New York. It's one of my prized possessions I have in my office. It's actually about 8 inches wide by about 20 inches tall. It's really
that's cool.
The photographer had one of these. This is all like pre-digital, so he had this old like I think a Hasselblad, like an old really awesome camera, and he just caught these vertical slices of the architecture and the this and the that. They're in gorgeous black and white. It is one of the most stunningly, like, you go, because it's just like one image per page. with a great little quote from a New Yorker about New York. And it's just, it captures New York. And so I think New York is just such a, it's a wonderful spirit. There's so much potential. I'm hoping that New York comes through well and swiftly, and that it doesn't take 10 years for it to get back to its feet.
Yeah, I agree. You know, being from California, I feel the same way about California. And I feel, unfortunately, there, and I can't speak for New York because I'm not from there. I'm not familiar with the culture. But California, its problems are generational. It's 20 years.
Yeah.
It can solve it, but it's so steeped in so much stuff, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a generation to eke out all the craziness that it does with business. But I would love to see a rebranding of New York. I think, you know, when I think of New York as a brand, there's a couple things that I'm almost 57. Number one, I think of the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, from an outsider.
Yeah.
Number two, I remember the campaign, I Love New York.
Sure.
And then I would say number three is Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
You know, I Did It My Way, or Singing New York, New York. I mean,
New York, New York. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got that lore and that, you know, I mean, baseball is full of lore.
Yeah.
And there is no greater lore team than the Yankees.
Yeah.
And then Frank Sinatra singing New York, New York, you know?
It's like what the Rat Pack was to Las Vegas. You know, it was just great. I mean, look, you know, I mean, Billy Joel. Billy Joel is, I think, one of the great New York originals, you know, him being from Long Island.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like great storyteller, totally reflective of the, you know, the New York vibe, the New York attitude, the New York candor. Just calling it what it is, right? You just name it what it is. You know, I may be crazy. You know, I may be crazy, but I just may be the lunatic you're looking for. I mean, all those lines. I mean, it's just a New York sort of flavor and vibe. And so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd be a fun project. Okay, great. So now tell us about your book.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a copy in front of you, or if,
I never leave home without it.
Yeah, sounds like a tagline.
Yeah.
There's this book, Brand Intervention. You can go to risingabovethenoise.com to find a copy of that. Forward by Daymond John. Wow.
Yep, Daymond.
Is it more cool than that? No.
Yep. So I mean, Daymond was born in Brooklyn and raised in Queens, like I was. We're 10 years apart in age, but yeah, Daymond wrote the forward. The book has been unbelievably well, like, received beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, for example, you know, Claude Silver, who works, who's number 2 person at VaynerMedia, the Gary Vaynerchuk's agency. We've become incredibly dear friends. Love her to the ends of the earth. We're just very, very, very dear friends.
Great
at this point. And she says that she absolutely went nuts over the book. She goes, my only regret is that I wish I'd had this book when I began my career. You know, there's that. And, you know, and Grant Cardone said David's solutions for branding will revolutionize the way you think about it. David is a branding genius. And, you know, I mean, there's stuff from Ted Rubin. There's stuff from tons of people, all echelons, because I intentionally made it. I avoided lingo. I was sick and tired of lingo. Actually, I'll tell you, there were about 3 things that I was sick and tired of. One, books that use this sort of lingoese, kind of like to sound knowledgeable. That to me was BS.
Yeah.
The other thing was, I was shocked when I went to Amazon.com. When I first went to Amazon, when I first was starting my book, I was curious, I wonder how many books are written on branding. So I typed in branding and looked under books under Amazon. At the time, it was 6,500 books. Today, it's over 10,000 books on the topic of branding. Now, the interesting thing is that if you and I, if we said, hey, if you were like, hey, David, why don't we read one book a day to like really see what everyone's written about branding? It would take us 24.6 years to actually read all those freaking books. Reading a book a day. Okay. So that's one thing. So that was one point of like, because I know when there's lots of opinions about one single thing, there's always a missing fundamental.
Yep.
So that was one point. The other point was this. I was finding myself, because I do enjoy learning, that when I would read like business books, I'd read a 250 to 300 page book. Why is it that I would always find 10 pages somewhere buried in the book that had what I called the shit, the real stuff?
Right.
And everything prior to that was build up and foreplay, and everything after that was smoking a cigarette and extrapolations, right? And so why? I said, did I sign up unknowingly for a treasure hunt? Because if you respect me as a reader and I respect you as a writer, why wouldn't you say, hey, you want the stuff? Go to page 221 to 233. There's the stuff. You want some more of my thoughts before and after? Sure. But if you're here, if you want like a drive-through, get your stuff, devour it, get on your way, there it is. Why didn't anybody show me that respect? So my thing was I wanted to create the book with zero fluff, zero BS, and I literally say that this is the first book written for CEOs, entrepreneurs, and brands that don't have time to read a book on branding. And how do I live that? By actually, this is the way I designed it.
I like that.
That's the actual size. That's the actual size of the top. So people love it. And the thing is that people read it and they go, I know a few people like that when they first open up, they're like, there's not enough words. Like I wanted more words. And then they start reading it. And they're like, oh, this is like really concentrated, dense stuff. There's like, I could easily take 2 sentences and turn it into a 40 paragraph chapter.
Right.
If I did not respect you, the reader.
It's almost like every page is a tweet.
Every page is several tweets. Every page kicks you in the tweet and keeps on walking.
And it keeps tweeting.
It keeps on tweeting. But yeah, no, it's super highly concentrated. And I literally, more people than I ever expected will get to the end, because the last 50 pages show you, because it's as visual as it is succinct. The last 50 pages show you, good. Now that you know what goes into successful branding, now you know what goes into unsuccessful branding. Here are examples of companies that I've worked with and helped. Here's where they were. Here's what was applied, and here's what the transformation. And then here's where they were, transformation. Here's where they were, transformation. Here's where they were, transformation. So by the time people are done with that, they're like, whoa, there's more to here than I realized. And they start the whole book over again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
For you in your career in branding, what was the point? I mean, you've had a progression of its growth, and I'm sure you've had your challenges and stuff.
Yeah.
Where was the point where things just went bam to a whole new level? Was there a significant moment where you did something for your brand as a branding guy that made the most significant difference, or you could just see a different pace or rate of progress afterwards?
I would say with the release of Brand Intervention.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden I became scalable. I 24/7, anywhere on the planet, I was accessible in that way. And I think, if somebody has something to bring to the world, no question that a book is the ultimate calling card. And it really is. I actually had until because early in my career, I had put out some books that were more focused on design, less on what I actually cover in the book here. And it was when I was putting this out, I did not realize how much value a book has in the eyes of people. I really did not appreciate it. I thought, oh, the world's going digital. So that's in my mind. It was an incorrect idea. It was a false idea, and that was something that I was like, holy crap, when you have that and it's done well, you can't just be, oh, okay, I'm going to put down my thoughts. No, it's like, what are you providing? If you're not giving me an aha moment, if you're not opening my eyes, if you're not opening my heart, if you're not opening my mind, if that's not the foundation of what you're doing with your book, you're adding to the noise. And I'm a firm believer. I always will say it. You're either adding to the noise or you're rising above the noise. Those are your two options. And if you're doing the ordinary, if you're doing the predictable, if you're doing your version of what's been said or heard 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 times before, you're adding to the noise. It is incumbent, it is vital that we each take ownership and be accountable for how we differentiate ourselves in the world. If we fail to do that, we're just one more talking head.
So true. Great insight, great advice. Thank you so much, David. Hey guys, look, I'm getting the book right after this. You guys need to get the book right after this. I'm an avid reader. By the way, David, just to let you know, when COVID hit, I stopped bringing my laptop to the coffee shop and I started bringing books because I'm an avid coffee drinker. And I have to get out of the house in the morning.
Yeah.
It's my routine. I've done it for years and years and years. Just leave the house, get a coffee, sit at my laptop. When COVID hit, I wanted to bypass some old habits.
Yeah.
With this craziness. And I'm like, okay, how do I start to reinvent my own brand? And Growth Driven is one of these efforts.
Yeah.
Amongst many.
Yeah.
But I thought I need to start educating myself. So now I spend an hour a day in the morning, leave my laptop, no electronics.
Brilliant.
Just read a book.
Oh, I love it. Well, one thing, make sure, get the hardcover. Just trust me. The production values are the best.
Okay.
As opposed to the other. And trust me, you'll be in and out of this a lot. You want the hardcover. It's practically like putting the book in Kevlar. So that way it'll be ready for the battlefield.
Kevlar branding. I love it. Okay. So, hey guys, thanks again. David, I hope everybody's watching this, that they get the book, they go to Rising Above the Noise, get the book, read it, apply it. Hey, and if you know of a brand that's stuck, is plateaued, it's been around, it's been pinch and hold, reach out to David. I've seen his work firsthand, and he truly is one of the most intelligent minds I've ever met on the subject. So, David, thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to sign out with my little outro video.